Kick off summer with Memorial Day savings at Lowe's. Right now, get 5 Scott's Naturescapes 1.5 cubic foot mulch bags for just $10. Plus, get up to 40% off select major appliances and save an extra $50 on every $500 you spend on select major appliances $396 or more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 5/28. Mulch offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. See Lowe's.com for more details.
Blog Talk Radio.
All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico. We've got a great show, as always, for you here tonight on the blogtalkradio.com network. I've got a great couple of guys that have been on the show many, many times here to start things off in the Coach's Corner panel, and I'll bring them out here in just a second. And then a little bit later on, my good friend is back again this year. This will be, I think, the third time this year. My good friend Byron Casper, son, of course, of legendary Billy Casper, is going to be joining me on the second half of the show, so you want to make sure you stick around for that segment as well. But thank you for joining us live here tonight on the, as I said, on the blogtalkradio.com network. Just to remind everybody, of course, if you go to blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live, that will take you to the main page, and we're front and center there from 6 to 8 p.m. Central. If for some reason you can't join us live, not to worry. You can just scroll down the page a little bit, and you'll find the on-demand section, and all of the shows are there previously recorded in their entirety. So if you can't join us live, just go there, and you'll find the show a little bit later on this evening, and you can listen to it and catch up. And you can also find some of the older previously aired shows as well. If you've missed a few of them, or you want to hear one again, maybe because we had some great guests or something interesting that you want to evaluate, by all means, feel free to visit that as our on-demand section once again. You can also check us out on iTunes.com, Stitcher.com, and now TuneIn.com as well. And again, just type up in the search key Golf Talk Live, and you can listen under some of those social media platforms if you so choose. You can always call in and speak with any of the guests at any time during the Thursday night live broadcast, and that number to call, of course, is area code 646-716-4667. Or you can email me any questions or comments about the program to my email address, and that's ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. And if you're somebody in the golf industry that maybe you've got an interesting product or service, or maybe you're a fellow teaching professional and maybe you haven't been on the show, or maybe you haven't been on for a while, and you've got something that you want to share with the audience, by all means, feel free, again, to reach out to my email. And again, it's ted.golftalklive@gmail.com. And, of course, I update on all social media. Facebook, Twitter, and, of course, LinkedIn are the primary social media platforms. So you can look under Golf Talk Live blog or under my personal name. And on Twitter, my Twitter handle is Ted and Buck CEO, and CEO, of course, is in capital letters. And, again, thank you for all of the recent followers on Twitter. I appreciate that, as well as on LinkedIn.com. And LinkedIn.com, you can just, again, under my personal name, and it's Ted Odorico, and it's Odorico. All right, as I mentioned, I got two great guys on the Coach's Corner panel tonight, Chuck Evans and Bill Abrams. Let me just tell you a little bit about each, and then I'll bring them on and we'll get tonight's discussion going. First up, of course, is Chuck Evans. He's a Golf Magazine Top 100 teacher, as well as one of Golf Digest's top teachers in America. He's also a top 50 growth of the game teacher, and also he is the Director of Instruction at the Emerald Bay Golf Course in Destin, Florida, as well as the owner of course, Chuck Evans Golf. Rounding out the panel tonight, another good friend and a fellow pro who's been on the show many, many times and always brings his best, as well as Chuck, and that's, of course, Bill Abrams. He's a PGA professional and owner and director of instruction at the Golf Solutions Academy in Balmoral Woods in Crete, Illinois. And he's also, you can find him on the Golf Channel Academy with David Impastato at the Heron Bay Coral Springs in Florida, I believe, in the latter part of the season. So make sure you check them out there as well. Guys, welcome to Coach's Corner.
Hey, thanks for having us, Ted.
Not a problem. Bill, that was correct, right? Normally in the fall, you're down at Heron Bay, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm in Coral Springs. Yep. We have Eagle Trace and Heron Bay down there with Dave Impastato. So I'm also available at Gateway Country Club in Fort Myers a day or two a week. So I get around.
Perfect. Well, you get. I was just going to say you get around. All right, guys. Well, as always, thank you for joining me tonight on the Golf Talk Live's Coach's Corner panel. We always have a good time. Guys, I want to go, I guess, for lack of better words, a little bit old school tonight. We always talk about technology and we talk about different things. And even though we're kind of at the midpoint in the season for a lot of folks, depending on where you are, I want to go back to some of the basics. But I want to do it a little bit differently than what we would normally do it. And Bill, if you don't mind, I'm going to start with you this time instead. I want to talk to you guys about, first off, about some of the keys to building your swing. And I'm talking about, of course, your, in the literal sense, not yours personally, but our average golfers. One of the problems that I find, and has been for a number of years in the industry, is there's a lot of different swing theories and methods out there, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. But one of the problems is that we have to be careful that we don't sort of pigeonhole everybody into a specific method or ideology, if you will. I think everybody is unique, and we have to make sure that we're building their best swing. So that's what I mean by your swing. So I want to talk about some of the key components, and we know most of them, of course, are going to start with a good grip in that. But I want to just get you to sort of formulate, if you will, some of the key components of a swing and how you go about when you're working, particularly with a new student, and you're starting to work and build their swing. What are some of the key things that you're looking for, and what are the factors that are involved in putting that swing together for them?
Well, Ted, it's a great question, and I think this is a big disconnect in the golf industry now. We've always been told grip alignment stance, and I'll be perfectly honest with you. I teach the footwork first, because you can't build a house unless you have a good foundation. Everything roots up from that. If we get good footwork, very good balance, stability in the swing, I found over time that the grip and everything will absolutely correct itself. I've seen players with very strong grips with very weak grips. I don't know if that's a thing. Michael Hebron, my friend, has always said, I think since 74, 75, there's 109 degrees of variance in grips that have won on the PGA Tour. So there are some fundamentals that have to be held true with that. But at the same point, when we learned to ride a bicycle, we didn't learn how to hold the handlebars first. We learned how to pedal. And then once we learned how to pedal, then you didn't even have to hold on to the handlebars sometimes, and then you met the asphalt. But that's another story. But, the whole idea is I think that's one of the things that happens so often with players is they get so enamored with the alignment and everything that they forget that the footwork is a big part of it. And we don't get that good balance and that good stability that builds good support for a lasting golf swing. Yeah,
you're exactly right. And I think that's right on the money. I think you do have to start really from the ground up. And there's nothing wrong with learning the grip and working on what's a good grip for you.
Oh, no problem whatsoever with that. No.
Right. But you're exactly right. A lot of times we see people that have a pretty good grip, and for the most part, their posture is pretty good, but they're aimed well left of their intended target, or well right, or somewhere, kind of a mixture of both. I've seen them all over the place. So obviously, getting them set up with a square foundation and a good balanced foundation is key, and I agree with you 100%. Chuck, what about you as well? What are your thoughts there? I'm sure you probably agree a lot with what Bill's just said. But what are your thoughts? If you've got a new student there and you're trying to really get them to find their swing, what are some of the things that you're going to be looking for, and what are the things that you want them to understand as a general rule, if you will, and then what you want them to sort of experience and explore on their own?
Well, so, for years and years, I've put people through a little physical assessment, and then Mike Adams took it to a higher degree with his bioswing dynamics. I first learned all this stuff from Pete Agoscu years and years ago. So I put him through a little a little physical assessment that tells me and tells them what their body wants to do. And I've had one person in 48 years actually swing the club the way their body wanted it to go. Everybody else is trying to swing like something they either read in a magazine, a video, or something. But one person, and that's close to 200,000 lessons. So that to me is the first thing that I look at. I'll let them hit some shots while I'm collecting data, and then I'll put them through the physical assessment. And like I said, it's very, very few people swing the way their body wants to go. They've been trying to train it to swing a different way for years, and that's why their body always fights it, and that's why they never gain better. So, I look at four things. Do you have enough speed, or power in your swing to play from the tees you've chosen? Are you hitting it solid, and are you controlling the face and the path? So you only have to do those things. So if they're not hitting it solid, that's the first thing we work on. And like Bill said, it is the foundation. If your body is not supporting what you're trying to do, then typically it's because you're trying to swing a way that your body does not want to swing. So that's why I do the assessments. And then once they hit it solid, we start working on face and path. And then, finally is the speed part. So like I was telling you earlier, our arrangement was closed today. So we went up into the men's locker room where we have, a big open area up there, and we have mirrors. So, I spent 2 hours with one of my college players up there. We just did mirror drills. So he could see what his body was doing, how it affected the club, and how it affected the club delivery. So that's how I work it. And then once I always do this, the first lesson with anybody, because if I've never seen them, I don't know what their body wants to do yet. But then they get a checklist of this is what your body wants to do. Because a lot of people, they'll feel like y'all ask them to do these body drills, or I'll watch them on video, and they'll sway way over to the right. Yet when I test their body, they're either pivoting around the center or the front leg. I go, okay, well, your body wants to do this, so why are you doing that? You're fighting yourself. And the same goes for how they move the club up, how high their hands go. There's a lot of different pieces that go to that. But there's 8 different assessments I give them that give them everything you need to know about the support of their body, how it wants to move, the path or steepness, flatness, whatever you want to call it, of their club at the top, their club face motion coming down into it. I mean, it gives them all those pictures and images. So I found over the years that is the best way. I used to just start people off with a grip. Well, what's good for one might not be good for another. So grip can be a basic. There is 0 players on tour that aim straight. That they're either aiming right or left depending on how they curve the ball. So that wouldn't be what do you call it? What did I just say? Grip,
key component,
posture. You used to call it gasp. They used to call it. So the grip, the stance, the posture, none of those things are really solidified because you see all different ones out there, all from all different players, and all these players in the Hall of Fame doing all these different things. So, when you have somebody, and I made this comment the other day to somebody, they said, well, I want to swing, using technical terms, they want to swing with like a 0 swing path that's coming into the ball, but they want to swing the club 6 degrees to the right after that. I said, that's not even possible. Because if you had Iron Byron swing 6 degrees to the right post impact from a 0 path, he would become unbolted from the floor. So while everybody does have a different grip, a different stance, a different posture, different ball position, I mean those are all different things, and everybody will have their own grip, their own ball position, their own stance, based on what the information I get from giving those physical assessments.
Right. Well said. What do you guys think about, this is something else too, and we're going to talk a little bit about, sort of myths, if you will, in the golf industry. Traditionally it was always thought that a shorter player tended to have a more flat swing, and taller players tended to have more of an upright swing. But that's not necessarily true, as we find now. If we look at some players, as you just pointed out, Chuck, if you look at many of the players on tour, everybody's got different grips, everybody's got different ball positions and so forth. So it's not necessarily true. So is it inherent for us to sort of throw that away and say, okay, just because you're 6'4", we shouldn't necessarily, if your body isn't naturally moving in that position, should we necessarily expect you to be swinging more on an upright plane or path, if you will? And quite frankly, you might be able to, depending on if you've been fitted properly, might actually have more of a flatter plane or path. Bill, what are your thoughts on that first, and then Chuck, I'm going to get you to
again, being
respond
a fitting guru, in the past we saw that because a lot of shorter players were playing with ill-fit equipment, and a lot of taller players were played with ill-fit equipment. But I think the biggest key for us as coaches is to define what is a proper plane, what is straight back. There's no definition out there. We have to communicate to our customers and our players. We have to define what that is, because so many people, I want to swing upright. Well, in my estimation, everybody thought Ben Hogan was flat. My good friend, the late Tony Holguin, who won the '54 Texas Open, knew him real well. He said, I saw him in the locker room without a shirt on. He goes, if you saw what his shoulders looked like, he said you'd throw up. He goes, this man was trying to swing upright, but his shoulders after the accident wouldn't allow him to do that. So how do you define it? I mean, that's the whole idea, is what is proper plane, what isn't proper plane. And I think that's where players are really getting fouled up, especially with all the internet and the videos out there. Well, I'm trying to take it straight back. Well, I see, as Chuck said, where you're zeroing out and then taking it to 6 out after the impact. I'm seeing so many players get disconnected. Their arms are running away from their body because they're trying to do things that they really can't define, and because somebody told them to do that. I've heard all over and over again, I got to flatten my swing. I got to flatten my swing. Well, why? How many players have really ever flattened their swing on tour and played better? I mean, that's the thing. We don't define things well enough. And I think that's part of the thing as coaches. We need to do a heck of a lot better job is defining what we're trying to do, give the players definition, and then they can move forward. The problem is if you say something and say it loosely, they may not catch it real well. And especially, somebody that's overstudied, they may take it the wrong way. So we really have to be very cautious and try to go in that way of getting it to where it gets through to them, to put them in the proper, setup position to allow the motion to happen in the golf swing. And that's, we get so balled up into positions like the plane and where this and this and this has to be. As Nicholas said, it's a game of motion. It's not a game of position. And I think that's where we get fouled up sometimes, not defining and then trying to create a position instead of allow it to happen.
Right.
Yeah, and that raises a very interesting point, Chuck. I'm going to let you respond here in just a second, but if you look at a player like Nick Faldo as an example, who was very mechanical in his golf swing. Now it served him well because that was he was a technical person. He needed to have that information for him to be able to then translate it into an effective swing for him, and it served him well. But for many other players, perhaps whether tour players or otherwise, getting that technical and worrying about getting the club in certain positions or the arms moving in a certain position, as an example, might not serve the average golfer as well. I mean, and again, Nick was able to do that quite effectively, but it might not serve another player as well. Chuck, what do you think about what I said earlier and what Bill has said as well about sort of defining based on somebody's build? We sort of, again, pigeonhole them into maybe an upright or a flatter swing. Is that a wrong approach, and what should we be doing instead?
Well, and again, I think it all starts with the physical assessment. I mean, Faldo's 6'4". And then he worked on getting a steeper plane because of the way he was shallowing it coming down. David wanted him to really, really shallow, he and Nick Price. So their swing looked upright, but it started shallowing before it reached the top. Bryson DeChambeau is another guy that, that probably has one of the steeper planes out there. But yes, we need to define whatever the plane is. I mean, all the science people will tell you today that the swing isn't planar at all. There's no such thing as a swing plane, but they call what they call a functional swing plane, which is the last time the shaft is level to the ground before impact, and then level to the ground on the other side. So that's where they're defining it at. But some students, it depends on the player. If they're familiar with, let's say Hogan's plane of glass, because nobody really ever talked about plane until Hogan's book with the pane of glass in it. So if you look back to all the old instruction books, nobody talked about swing plane. They just talked about taking the club back and swinging it down and through the golf ball. So you can be a shorter player, and again, it depends on your assessment, your arms. Look how tall Matt Kuchar's 6'2", 6'3", somewhere in there, and look how more around his swing is versus, say, Brooks Koepka or Dustin Johnson, who are probably the same height.
Right.
Now, so the height, to me, really has nothing to do with whether a person is upright or flattish. To me, it has more to do with their arm length, especially from the elbow down to the middle knuckle, which dictates kind of how high your arms will go. But that to me is a defining point, not the stature of the player. Because I've got tall players that are a little more round, and I've got shorter players that are a little more upright. And again, depends on how they tested. But you can look at the so-called fundamentals of grip, aim, stance, and posture. And again, once you get done through the assessment, that player will have their own fundamentals. It just won't be the ones as described.
Mm-hmm.
So one set doesn't fit everybody.
Right. And that's really the point that I was looking for. Well done, guys. Bill, I want to move on to another area that confuses a lot of golfers out there, and I've sort of put this one, titled this Opposites Attract. And what I'm talking about here is, and we're going to focus on the irons here for a second, but I think a lot of golfers misunderstand, obviously the object is to get the ball airborne. A lot of golfers scoop the ball, so they're trying to sort of hit up. They're trying to help those golf balls get up in the air, and really the opposite is true. They want to really create a swing that hits down on the ball and imparts that spin. So talk about that disconnect a little bit that golfers have, and what are some of the common things that you see a lot of golfers doing with their irons that focus on exactly what I'm talking about? Is there more of a scooping action or a hitting up on the ball as opposed to what really needs to happen?
Yeah, and I think a little bit of that goes into, they're right on spot, the angle of attack. We see so many players that are falling back onto their trail foot, trying to lift the ball up in the air, especially newer players, because it doesn't resonate real fast to them that shift to the forward foot will actually allow the club to hit down. Your upper body stays up, your arms will swing down, but what they do is they fall backwards and try to stay down, and then they hit up on the ball. And it is a little bit confusing, and I refer to it as opposed to hitting down, hitting through. So, I'll do a couple little drills to help people do that. I'll have them set up with a normal ball position in a 7-iron, and then I'll move a ball maybe 2 to 3 inches forward and tee it up. Pull the ball away in the normal position, said hit that one. And then they kind of learn where that bottom point is past the normal ball, and it gets them to hit through as opposed to up or down. Because I think sometimes when you say down, they stop the transfer of their center of gravity or their weight moving to the forward foot, and then all of a sudden that stops and they chunk it, or they stop back and they scoop and lift. And I think that's the biggest place is, they stop moving through the ball. That motion ends, or you tap the brakes a little bit, and it creates some varied ball flight with a chunk or a skull trying to lift up, and then then they're thoroughly confused as opposed to hitting through. When they hit through and that motion stays continual into that front foot, then you end up with a much better outcome.
Right. And you're exactly right. What people need to understand is as was pointed out, it's a motion. It's not, you're not hitting at the ball. It's a motion that you're actually hitting through the ball. The ball, obviously, as we all know, gets in the way, but it's a fluid motion. Something else too interesting, and Chuck, I want to get your thoughts here as well. Last week on the show, I had a very good golf professional from California, AJ Bonner, who, of course, has looked at things a little bit more scientifically. But he talked about something that was very interesting that I guarantee you that 90% of the people out there in golf probably don't really fully understand. I'm not necessarily talking about teacher professionals. Pardon me. I'm talking about, obviously, our players out there. But actually, one of the studies that was done, and he's done some very extensive studies on club face positions, and one of the things that was very interesting is they did a study with literally hundreds of tour players, obviously was their formula, if you will. And what he found was that a resounding majority, in fact, probably 100% of them, when they were hitting, the club face actually de-lofted 7 to 8 degrees every time for every shot. Right. So if you had a club that was, as an example, that was normally 47 degrees of loft, actually you're de-lofting it to 40 degrees through impact. And this actually creates that downward strike. And what people don't realize is by actually hitting down and connecting in the proper spot with the grooves creates that backspin that actually lifts the ball up. And what more importantly he pointed out as well, which was very interesting, is what people don't realize is one of the reasons why that club face needs to de-loft is if you hit it through with its normal loft, so say, again, using a club that had 47 degrees loft, if you hit it with that 47 degrees loft, you're certainly going to get it airborne, but you're actually going to lose distance. You're not creating enough forward momentum for that particular club. So that's why you see a lot of times, for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons you see a lot of tour pros that maybe hit a 7-iron as an example, why they're able to hit it so much farther than a lot of our amateurs, because they're actually de-lofting, creating more forward momentum as opposed to just trying to scoop it and hit it up in the air. So it was very interesting, some of the studies that they've done, and it's been done for quite some time. But Chuck, I want you to sort of elaborate a little bit as well about the importance of really getting down on the ball and through as opposed to trying to scoop and help it up in the air.
Well, I'd have to agree with AJ because 20-some-odd years ago in Atlanta, when Puggy Blackman was the men's golf coach and Charlie Reimer and Duvall and Stuart Sink were all there, what we did is we took the average amount of shaft lean from how a club was designed, and so let's say it was 8 degrees of forward shaft lean as designed. In almost every case, the amount of lean as designed versus impact was double. So if you had 8 degrees of forward lean off of vertical, at impact, good players had 14, 15 degrees of forward lean. But that doesn't mean they're taking deep divots. So what you typically see with a less skilled player, when you get them to lean the shaft that much, they'll do one or two things. They'll either hit a huge chunking divot, right? I mean, you got to call the sod truck to fill this thing in. Yeah, or they'll top it, right? and so the way that the way that you don't take those big chunky divots is you can have a lot of shaft lean coming into impact, but you got to be moving your body in a manner that makes the hands start going up and around while the club head's going down. So that's why they can still hit, shots that spin a lot, still take a thin divot without taking chunky ones. But you go back to the
Right.
average player. I've seen lots of average players that moved over to their lead side, but their arms were late. So by the time their left arm got to, let's say, level to the ground, the butt of the club was so far away that they actually had to stop their body, flip the club head, because in their mind they're going, okay, my hand's here, my club head's there, I'm never going to reach the ball, so they flip the club head. But then, as Bill was talking about, if you're a back footer, let's say, you've got to get them to feel not only forward, but the up and around as well, because that's what moves the hands forward. I mean, if you just held your hands straight in front of you, like you're holding a golf club, and you lean the shaft forward, and now you don't move, and let's say I got my weight forward, and I don't move anything except my hands. Well, my hands are only going to go to about my lead foot, and past that point, they're going to break down. But if I do that same drill, and I start turning my body, around, up, and back, my hands come all the way around with a forward lean, all the way around to my heel line. So body motion is pretty important for getting the hands up to where they need to be. And we all got tons of drills for that. I build a wall of sand, and I have them take out the wall of sand. I'll put a club on the ground. I have them, make the divot at or in front of that club line. So there's lots of ways to do it, and they do get it figured out pretty quickly. One of my favorites is to put I'll take their favorite club, and we'll do this with a wedge first, and I will put it 8 inches behind the golf ball. So it's running, like a T relative to the target line. And I'll get them to set up and go, okay, so that's your club. If you release this too early and you hang back, you're just going to hit your own club. Well, that makes them stop hitting it pretty darn quick, okay? So
Right.
I had a guy break his favorite driver one time, and he just kind of looked at me, and I went over and I said, here, let's do it again. And I put his 3-wood down, and he didn't hit that one. So
Right. Sometimes you have to improvise a little bit and to get them to understand. But some great points, guys. And again, the reason why I want to talk about some of these things is, there's still so many people out there, guys, that are struggling with their golf game, and they're just not understanding it. And they're, Bill, as you pointed out earlier on, and listen, I'm all for golf videos, instructional videos. Obviously we all have an online presence. There's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is there is so much of it, and you've got to be committed. You've got to be working with somebody that's qualified, that understands the key components to the golf game, not just the swing and some of the methodologies, but also understands how to play the game. Because you can go to 100 different coaches and get all different viewpoints and ideas. You've got to find one that works for you. But more importantly, you've got to find one that's going to help you translate what you've learned with them and take that out in the golf course and be able to play, because that's really what it's all about. You're not there to learn just to be able to hit golf balls on the range. You're there to learn how to play this game. So you got to be very, very careful with a lot of the information out there. And that's why one of the reasons why I do this program is to be able to share some different ideas and different viewpoints. And we may not always agree 100%. The most part, I think we understand one another here on the Coach's Corner panel, but it's not here to say that our way is right or that way is wrong. It's really to give people an understanding and an idea of what they need to be thinking about when they're going out there and taking golf lessons, and what they need to be mindful of when they're surfing around the internet. Don't just grab every video that you see and assume that's the gospel, because there's a lot of misinformation out there as well, as we all know. Bill, I want to get you guys to talk a little bit about this next question I've got here. Really talks about the sort of the short game facts and faults, and even some fiction. A lot of misunderstandings and proper techniques out there. So what I'd like for you to do is just, and again, maybe 1 or 2 examples of some short game facts or faults or even fiction out there that you've seen that you'd like to clear up to make people understand. If there's information that's being circulated around whatever format, what you want to make sure that somebody that wants to have a good short game, what they should be really focusing on and what they should be really saying that's not right. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think the first thing is you got to define the shot. Are we pitching or are we chipping? And one of the problems that I find when players come to me is they're setting up with a chipping stance to hit pitch shots and vice versa. And, we've seen that happen to some great players in the past. I mean, the former world number one got into a chipping stance trying to hit pitch shots that were against what he used to do, and he was hitting skulls and chunks and some weird-looking things. So we have to first define the shot we're trying to hit because, to me, a pitch shot is more of a mini swing where we're utilizing the bounce of the club a little bit more. We're not going to get, as I call it, leaning and digging so much. We're going to let that club more or less bruise the grass, slide along the ground, allow the grooves to work, and get some loft on it. Now, if we're hitting a running shot, a little bit different story. So we have to first define that, and I think that's where the biggest myth players, they don't really understand the type of shot that they want to hit. So the first thing that I do with a player is I say, well, let's, we're not going to determine the distance. Let's determine the trajectory we need to hit the shot. Now, from there, then we can start to define the shot we have to hit. And I think, me personally, that's the biggest one that I see. We have people trying to hit a sand wedge right along the ground when they have an 8-iron. You've got a sack of hammers. Let's use the proper hammer to hit this shot without you having to create a lot of manipulation and a lot of adjustment through the shot. And I think that, to me, is the number one error that I see most amateurs play. They don't, number one, know how to use the bounce to loft the ball. And then number two, they're confusing a chipping technique with a pitching technique. And that really creates a lot of trajectory issues and spin issues. And, and then you get those unmentionable lateral layups that start to happen when you start to confuse the two methods. And that makes no one happy.
Right. Yeah, you're exactly right. Chuck, I think something else too that kind of falls into the short game, and I think again it goes under this sort of misunderstanding category. We've often heard, that you can use one iron to do a lot of different shots, which is certainly true. You can improvise and you can do that. The problem is, if you're trying to hit a very high lofted shot around the green, you're not going to necessarily use your 8-iron. You're going to use, obviously, a wedge. It might be your sand wedge. It might be your pitching wedge. So a lot of times people get confused with that, and they think that, well, this is my favorite club. I'm comfortable. And just as Bill pointed out, they try to improvise a little bit too much in the wrong way, and obviously all different results can happen, and it just adds to that frustration. So what are some of the short game faults and fiction, if you will, and facts that you come across?
Well, most of it would be with the wedges, and especially the difference between a chip and a pitch. In my world, a chip is nothing but putting with a lofted club, and pitching is when you start adding, wrist cocking when you set an angle.
Right.
So what I do with chipping, I base it off of if you're more than one pace off the green, that's going to dictate whether it's a chip or a pitch. So if you're 3 paces or in and you're chipping, I use a ratio that I got years and years and years ago, and it starts with your lowest or highest lofted club is a 1-to-1 ratio. So you're carrying it 1 part on the green and 1 part roll. Your next lofted club would be 1 part on the green, 2 parts roll. So, for example, if you were, let's say you were 12 paces total from your ball to the hole, and you step from your ball to 1 full pace on the green, and that's 2 paces. And now let's say you step from your ball to the hole, and that's 6 paces. So you go take 2 into 6 is 3. So you go lob, sand, gap. That's a gap wedge. That's how I teach my stuff to the players, because they make one simple motion, which is basically from thigh to thigh with this little chip shot. And if they have a longer chip, they just take a longer club. I mean, it makes sense to me. If I have a 150-yard shot, I have a club for that. If I have a 180-yard shot, I'm not going to take that club and hit it harder. I'm going to change club.
Right.
So to me, you should always be changing clubs when you're chipping. And the same thing with pitching. You know, you want a higher trajectory, take a higher lofted club. You want a lower trajectory, take a lower lofted club. And depending on the trajectory, it's all based on carry as well. If I'm hitting my lowest trajectory shot, I'm going to carry it a third on a pitch and let it run 2/3. The mid trajectory, I'm going to carry halfway, and the highest trajectory, I'm going to carry 2/3 of the way.
Right, exactly, and that's what I'm talking about. Is, you know, there are so many variations. I mean, we could go on all night with some of the other short game facts and fiction and misunderstandings that happen out there, and a lot of it boils down to proper technique. But again, understanding, and Chuck, you also raised a very interesting question. You know, we have 14 clubs in the bag for a reason, and that's not to say that there might be certain clubs that you may use a little bit more often, depending on what course you're playing on. But the reason you have those different courses, as you said, you have different shots, and a lot of players out there, as you said, you know, maybe have a 150-yard shot, so that might be, maybe for some player that might be a 7-iron. Now all of a sudden they've got a 175 or 180-yard shot, and they think, well, maybe if I just give my 7-iron a little bit more juice, I can get there. And what often ends up happening is they're not making a clean strike, and they're either blocking it or they're hooking it, depending on their circumstances, and it's just not going anywhere near where their intended target, as opposed to maybe taking that 6-iron or 5 for even some players, and making just that normal swing, a good fluid motion swing, if you will, and getting that distance that they need. And I think that's a big problem that a lot of golfers have out there as well, is they're misclubbing themselves. We see that all the time. How many times do you see a player come up that you're working with and you say, okay, we've got 150 yards to the green, and they come up short every time because they're not hitting the proper clubs. Sorry, Chuck, go ahead.
Well, yeah, and that's the whole thing, is they don't really know how far they hit each club, and they don't know the gap distances between the club. So, you know, for me, I like 15 yards between my clubs. All right, some players like 8, some players like 10, some like 12, you know. But for me, I've always had 15. That's what I play to. So when my clubs, when I change clubs, I mean, you know, Srixon does a great job. I got this set that I've had now, I took in to see, okay, I'm an old guy. Is there any way that I can make this thing move faster via shaft or something else? And after all the testing, I was using the optimum club for me with the right shaft. Mm-hmm. And so they measured all my clubs. My gap wedge was 1 degree off. 1 degree.
Right.
So that's how good it came from my company, from Srixon. But I would advise players to know how far you hit each club, and then set your gaps up accordingly. And I know that you've done this, Bill. You'll have players hit their clubs, and you'll have 6 yards of distance between the 6 and the 7, and then you got 15 yards of difference between the 7 and 8. You know?
There's a point of diminishing return at some point in the set.
Yeah, right. So they're not spaced evenly throughout it. You know, and the same thing with my wedges. You know, and everybody's personal that way, but you know, my wedges are always flatter, lie angle wise, than my set makeup, the rest of my set, simply because they have more loft and they're easier to pull offline. So I flatten them a little bit. Right. You know, and I would suggest that any player out there, whether you're a 15 or a 20 or a 30 handicap, go see somebody and get your gaps, your gap distance settings, you know, and figure out what they are for you. And again, like I said, it could be 8, could be less. Mine just happens to be 15. So.
Yeah, exactly. And that goes back to something that Bill said early on in the segment, and that was really, you know, the importance of proper club fitting right from the get-go. I mean, if you're playing with clubs that are not suited to your game and to your specific features, if you will, then you're just really, you know, sort of finding a Band-Aid solution for a lot of the problems. And you'd be surprised at how many problems will go away with equipment that's fitted properly. Bill, I'm going to jump back to you here, and this is, again, sort of falls into the short game area again, but and I sort of call this one fear not. Getting out of the sand, of course, this is a big one for a lot of people, especially our high handicappers, and that is when it comes to bunker play. Talk a little bit about, again, some of the misunderstandings, maybe misconceptions, some of the faults and problems that many of our amateur golfers have when they find themselves in the bunker. Walk us through the process a little bit from your understanding of it and what you try to help your students with when it comes to bunker play.
Well, the first thing is we got to make sure that they have a wedge that has the adequate amount of bounce to make the shot work. Because I think a lot of players, when I see it, they get fearful. They are either digging in, they're leaning and digging and taking too deep a divot, or they're stopping and pulling up and then taking too little divot. And I think that's one of the things. The first thing I do, especially with a player that's been really having some, some issues in the bunker, I'll coach him how to hit a bunker shot out of the rough. I will have the ball sitting in a pretty deep lie in the rough, and then teach him how to use the bounce first. So that bottom of the club, that trail edge of the club is hitting the ground 4 inches, 5 inches behind the ball, sliding along the ground. Now all of a sudden they get the concept of how that club is supposed to feel and sound when it hits the turf. Once we get that, then we'll jump in the bunker and we'll utilize the same thing. I'll have them take a few practice swings so they understand what a good divot looks like in the sand. They know what it feels like, and they know what that club is sounding like. All of a sudden, we'll add a ball to it. Now, I said, just move the sand the same way. Throw the sand out, let the back edge of that club hit the sand, and poof, that sand flies out, the ball flies out, and they're like, was it really this easy? I said, yeah, it's just you didn't know what you were trying to do, first of all. You were just trying to get the ball out, and there's a really good way to do it, but you were kind of a little misguided in what you were trying to do. And then all of a sudden they see that, and now I've taught them 2 shots. They get the heavy, whether it's Bermuda grass or whether it's ryegrass or whether it's bent grass up here north, they get that buried rough lie around the edge of the green. Now they can manage trajectory a little better. Plus, they're much easier getting out of the sand.
Yeah, that's a great tip for you golfers listening out there. That's a great example of a really solid drill. For those who are a little bit skittish about getting into the bunkers, doing that in that rough, I think, is a great idea. And kudos to you, Bill, for doing that. Chuck, I wonder sometimes, if we need to equip golf courses in addition to a rake around the bunker, if we maybe need to do a shovel as well, because I see some pretty deep divots coming out of those bunkers sometimes, which kind of alludes to what Bill was talking about. A lot of our players try to move heaven and earth to get that ball out of there, and it's not really the proper technique. So from your perspective, what's a proper technique in the bunker, and how can we help some of our folks that are tuning in tonight maybe get out of those bunkers a little bit easier?
Well, I think a couple of things lead to the steep, because, when you're talking to the average player, those are the people we talked about that the club head flies back to hand by their hands and they're sitting on their back foot. Well, if they have a little more pressure forward at address to keep it there, and they make that same motion that we're trying to get rid of in full swing, that brings a bounce into play, and that takes them out of the bunker. But the reason I see most people are steep is because they've always read that you point your club at the target and then you aim your body 30 to 40 degrees left and you swing on your body line. Well, that in itself makes it steep coming into the golf ball. When you set up and then you open, you've effectively moved the ball way back in your stance. Now you're swinging out to in, which is a steeper angle of attack. So I have my players just set up square, just like a normal shot. And I have them open the face, expose the bounce, take their grip, and then when they take it back, I want them to feel like they're opening the face even more. So as they come down, even if they try to flip it or roll it, they won't get it past where it's going to have that leading edge digging in. And I use bunker boards. I take a board and I paint it white. I bury it at the level of the sand, and then I put a wedge full of sand on the board with the ball on top of it, and I have them make a swing. And it'll come out every single time. And then you can look at the bottom of the wedge, and that's why I paint it white. You can see, did it hit leading edge, did it hit on the sole, or did it hit trailing edge? because those are the three edges
Right.
that we have on every club. And if you're getting trailing edge, you hit 3 or 4 shots like that. Then you take them off the board, but you still put the ball on a pile of sand. Now it's just move the pile of sand, right? And then we finally put the ball in the bunker itself. Draw a little line behind the bunker where you want the club to enter. I mean, that's kind of how I do it. So I personally don't like the open thing because it does have a tendency to dig too much. And if they start trying to bring the club more around them from that open stance, that leads to that lateral shot we were talking about. And we all know that a well-bladed bunker shot goes as well as a good drive on some days.
Right. And I think that's a great point, Chuck, and I think really there's room for a little bit of flexibility with that, and let me explain. I think for some of our earlier players and our less skilled players, I think that's a very great technique to adopt, and I think as a player becomes more skilled and comfortable hitting out of the bunker shots, if they want to open up their stance a little bit, once they understand the proper techniques, I think that's okay. But I agree with you. I think that for many players out there that really get confused, because golf is a game of angles. And once you understand the angles and why things work the way they do, as we talked about earlier with the face angle, actually de-lofting when it's coming in through impact, once you understand that and how the club actually works, and how your body works in connection with that, because obviously the club is connected to you. So if your body's working in the correct motion, the club is going to follow along. And when those two start to become disjointed, then all kinds of funky things start to happen. So I like that analogy that you pointed out, that you like to have your students do that with a square stance. And again, like I said, I think that's a great way to start. And if as players become a little bit more accomplished, if they want to open up a little bit and become more comfortable in the bunker, I think that's okay too. So whatever style obviously works. And again, this is one of the things about the golf industry is there is room really for many different options out there. As long as the basic fundamentals remain the same, I think there's nothing wrong with that, and I think that's fantastic. Well, guys, it's hard to believe, but we're already past or coming up to our time, and it's amazing how fast these hours go when you get into a deep conversation like this, and I always enjoy it very much having you guys on the panel, and you make it a lot of fun and interesting, and always I feel like I learn something new a little bit each time as well. So I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes each, and Chuck, I'm going to let you go first, so take a deep breath, and then Bill, let the folks know how they can get in touch with you and any final thoughts before you go.
Well, first of all, say hi to Byron for me. His dad and I played. His dad and I played in a pro at Miami Lakes way back when, and just a quick story. He asked me how my putting was, and I said, "Well, not as good as yours, right?" So we beat we beat Don January and his team by 10 shots. So I still have the picture.
Wow.
But they can reach me through my website, chuckevansgolf.com. Email and phone number are all up there. They can also visit Emerald Bay Golf Club. It's here in Destin, Florida. They have a website as well. Their information is up there, but mainly you can just reach me right through the website because everything is up there. You know, I'm on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, all under Chuck Evans. So.
Perfect. Bill, what about yourself? How can the folks reach out? And any closing thoughts that you want to, or remarks that you'd like to make before we go?
The easiest way to get me is through my website. It's Bill Abrams, BILLABRAMS golf.com. Real simple way. It's got phone, text, email, all involved right there. I'll be at Balmoral Woods here in Illinois through mid-October, and then I will be in Coral Springs, Florida, with Golf Channel Academy and David Impastato, and I also do a couple days a week at Gateway Golf Club in Fort Myers as well, which is part of our umbrella there. And I just want to thank you very much, Ted, for your wonderful forum and wonderful opportunity you give us to discuss golf and really clear up the air for a lot of players, because I think at times it just gets so confusing. The reason people don't want to take lessons is because they fear they're going to get worse. And I think one of the things with us being able to talk with players makes it more palatable to take lessons. And I thank you very much for your efforts.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. As always, as I've said many, many times, I know it's not always easy when you work all day long on the golf course and traveling and things like that. It's not always easy then to have to set aside an hour to do the show. So I appreciate that. So, guys, thank you very much, and I look forward to the next time here on the Coach's Corner panel. Have a great weekend, guys.
Thanks so much. Thanks again, Ted. Appreciate it.
All right. All right, that was the Coach's Corner panel. Chuck Evans and Bill Abrams, both a couple of great professionals. Been here many, many times on the Coach's Corner panel and keep managing to come back. So I guess we must be doing something right here in the broadcast. Let me just remind everybody, of course, again, we are live every Thursday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. Central here on the blogtalkradio.com network. Best way, of course, to find me is to go to blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live. And we will be front and center right there on the main page. And you can just scroll down. If you're not able to join during the live broadcast, which ends at 8 o'clock Central, then you can just scroll down that same link and you'll see the on-demand section. And tonight's show and all of the other previously aired shows, you'll find them there in their entirety. So you can just click on one of the respective links there, and that will take you directly to the recorded version. You can listen there with all of the great guests and panels that I've had over. This is actually season 6 that we're in. It's hard to believe, but and this is our 201st show on Golf Talk Live, so I'm very happy and pleased about that. And had a lot of great guests, and tonight's no exception. Always happy to have this gentleman on. We've become, not only on air, but off air, we've become very, very good friends. And many a nights over the last 6 years, since I've gotten to know Byron, we've had some great and very lengthy conversations sometimes. We're, as you've obviously guessed or gathered from listening to the show here, I can be a pretty long talker, and well, Byron can do that justice as well. So when you get two talkers on the phone, it's sometimes difficult to end the calls early, but we always have interesting discussions. And of course, it's not always about golf, but we have some great stories that we can share with one another. So it's always interesting. Again, also, in addition to going to blogtalkradio.com network, you can also go to iTunes.com, Stitcher.com, and TuneIn.com as well. And again, just type in Golf Talk Live, and you can listen to the show, of course, on any of those social media platforms. Also, go to Facebook.com/Golf Talk Live blog, and that will take you to the main Golf Talk Live page on Facebook. And I update every week who's going to be on not only the panel, but who my special guest each week is going to be. You can also follow me on Facebook, my personal page. My name, of course, is Ted, and last name is spelled Odorico. So if you find me there, I've maxed out the limits of connections that I can have. So you just have to follow me, but that list, of course, is growing as well. And you can also follow me on Twitter. Always update. Everything's automatically updated through Twitter as well, all the appropriate links to the show. So you can go to Twitter. My Twitter handle is Ted and Buck CEO. And again, CEO is in capital letters. And once again, thank you to all of the recent followers on Twitter. Thank you. Also, pardon me, you can follow me personally on LinkedIn.com, which is a great business social network, a little bit different than Facebook. And I post everything there each and every week. And you can also remember to tune in every Tuesday morning on all of those networks, Blog Talk Radio, of course, the principal network, for the Women of Golf show. And the only difference in the link is, of course, instead of after the / instead of writing Golf Talk Live, you just put in Women of Golf. And every Tuesday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, you will find myself and my good friend and co-host, LPGA professional and Legends Tour player, Cindy Miller, there on the air for an hour. We have a great time every Tuesday morning. And this season, much like the last couple of seasons, we've been featuring many of the winners off of the Symetra Tour, which, of course, is the lead-up to the regular LPGA Tour. And we've had some great young ladies join us each and every week there. And, of course, on the first half hour and then the second half, we have some of our regular featured guests. And last week, of course, we had Louise Ball, who's a great LPGA teaching and club professional and very well-known up in the Tennessee area, up in Knoxville. So you want to look for her if you're interested in working with a great LPGA professional. And, of course, my good friend Cindy Miller from Buffalo, New York. She, of course, travels quite a bit, but you'll find her up there in New York. So you just go to cindymillergolf.com and you'll find all great information about her as well. But remember to join us every Tuesday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern here in the blogtalkradio.com network, and also under iTunes.com, Stitcher.com, and TuneIn.com. And again, just type in Women of Golf and you can follow us there. But we want to thank, for both shows, we want to thank the audience for faithfully tuning in each and every week. So thanks, guys. As I said, I'm going to be joined here in just a moment. I'm just waiting for him to come on board. My very good friend, Byron Casper. He's a golf professional and a member of the International PGA since '97. And, of course, co-founder, along with his father, Billy Casper. They founded the Billy Casper Golf Schools. And, of course, we lost Billy a couple of years ago. He's no longer with us, but he certainly is in spirit. So let me bring on my good friend, Byron Casper, and we're going to find out what's been happening in Byron's world since we talked to him last. Good evening, my friend. How are you doing?
You know what? I'm doing great. How are you doing, Ted?
I'm doing fantastic. I don't know if you've been listening at all, but I've been letting the audience know that they've got a couple of talkers going to be going at it here for the next little while. So we certainly won't run out of anything to talk about. And I reminded them that you and I have a habit of some very lengthy conversations on the phone sometimes at night, solving many of the world's problems. So we'll try to avoid that tonight.
Yeah, we'll keep it to golf tonight. Absolutely.
Yeah, this is a golf show. So Byron, I know you've got a lot of things, and I'm going to give you a chance to get to some of the things I know that you're excited to talk about tonight. And I'm always glad I think this is the third time you've been back this year. I had you were my first guest this season, coming back in season 6. Let me just say this real quick. It's hard to believe, but this is the 6th season of this show, Golf Talk Live. So it's really it's really been building. Yeah, I can't believe I've been doing it that long. And it's 5 seasons for my other show, Women of Golf, which is, of course, as I mentioned just a moment ago, Tuesday mornings with my good friend, LPGA professional Cindy Miller. So season 5 and season 6, respectively, with the programs, and lots of shows under my belt. So, but I want to talk about, before we get into...
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm very happy about it, and it's continued to grow. The audience is growing each and every week. It's just amazing, the numbers that are coming out. But I want to talk about, Byron, a couple of things before we get into some of the stuff I know that you want to talk about tonight. And a few weeks ago, I was going to have you on, and obviously I was getting ready to go on holidays, and some things came up, and we didn't get a chance to have you at that time in early July. But I want to just talk just a few moments about the Open Championship. Of course, I'm talking about at Carnoustie, and this is a tournament that your father played in. Give me your thoughts, but also give me maybe some thoughts. What did your dad think about the Open Championship?
It was one of his regrets. Mom and I spoke about that just a few days ago. She had mentioned that one of his big regrets was not taking the time to go overseas in the Open Championship more. And, there was a lot of reasons for that, and quite a few of the tour players in the U.S. didn't go over there. And it was primarily money, because traveling international back then was hugely costly, and the purses certainly weren't what they were today. And he kept being the defending champion of a tournament that coincided here in the U.S. And so that really took out of going over and playing. And as he got older, and as that tournament and the golf world in general became a much more worldwide entity, I think he really recognized that was the one tournament out of everything he had done in his life, that he would have liked to have a real shot at going over there more.
Yeah, and I know you personally, I know that you were you lived over in Scotland for a number of years. You worked in around St. Andrews, so you've got quite a bit of knowledge over there. Just for those that maybe have never been there and are under the impression that golf over there is very much similar to what it is over here, there is a big difference. I mean, obviously we're playing 18 holes and they're playing 18 holes, but the courses are noticeably different, and sometimes you don't always appreciate what you see on camera. So maybe just give a brief explanation of what it was like over there for you and maybe some of your experiences, in around some of the golf courses there.
Sure, I'd love to. In fact, I can't ever talk enough about Scotland. I really enjoyed living there. I have a lot of friends still there that I keep in contact with, thanks to the wonders of technology and social media. And for me, as an American from the West Coast, it was a real learning curve going to Scotland, because golf courses there and in England as well, are really nothing like what we grew up playing here in America. Specifically, link-style golf courses, which are just an amazing test of your game. They're usually close to the water, with a lot of breeze and wind coming off. There's a lot of reeds, heavy rough, very undulated ways that are mowed down so that the ball rolls, and just a real challenge when you include the big bars and the greens. Just an amazing opportunity to play a different style of golf, I suppose, than as an American I was used to. And then when you add in the history of the game of golf in that country, one thing is apparent when you go to Scotland, and that is it's not just the courses, it's the Scottish people that just have a love for the game of golf. And it really is a unique experience. I would suggest anybody that loves golf take the opportunity at some point in their life to go over and play. Carnoustie specifically is a course that has a lot of memories for me personally, and because I played that course a lot. I lived about 45 minutes drive from there. And it really taught me how to keep the ball low in 30-mile gusts, which is paramount to even. And I think the first time I played Carnoustie, Ted, I saw a plaque saying that my dad had the low round. And there was a nice article that came out talking about that in, I believe, '68 during an Open Championship. And as a typical 20-year-old, feeling very cocky and that I would go out and rip the course up, I think I ended up shooting 82.
Wow.
And calling my dad afterwards and, just being amazed at how he could even score on that course. It is a different test of golf for sure.
Yeah, and the courses over here, I mean, certainly there are some challenging courses here in the United States, but again, it's a much different breed, if you will. They've certainly tried to mimic links courses over here in certain areas. I know in the United States they've tried to mimic that, and I think in some cases they've done a very good job. But I think it is. I think one of the things that also makes it a little bit different that people may not appreciate in much of the United States, particularly in the Southeast, we can get some pretty steamy, and even in the Southwest a little bit, some hot temperatures. Over in England and Scotland, it's kind of similar, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's more along the lines of San Francisco, where it's a little bit more moderate temperatures. So you don't get really the hot and humidity like we do here. And as you said, you get a lot of those sea breezes quite continually, which presents a whole different myriad of challenges on some tough fairways and greens. Would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, very much so. The weather is, I would say that you're being kind by saying San Francisco. I would go a little further north, and I would say that it is it's much more similar to a very wet Seattle, Washington. And those of you that are familiar with Washington, which is a wonderful state where my mother is from, also know that they get their fair share of rain and some good healthy weather up there. And I would say Scotland is very much the same. Perhaps a little bit more snow in the northern parts of Scotland and in the Highlands, but generally the country is very similar to Seattle, Washington.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I just want to have a few more questions for you, Byron, and then, like I said, I know there's some things that you want to get out tonight and talk about that you're very excited about. I want to ask you a question. We've talked about this personally, off air. We've talked a little bit about it on air, but what do today's golfers, in your opinion, what do you think they want from their teachers? Because the industry has changed a lot from, when your dad was first getting out there, and even when you first started playing golf, golf instruction has really changed dramatically, and even the way that people approach the game today, and I'm talking about our amateur golfers, I'm not talking obviously the professionals, but what do you think they want from their teachers today? What do you think they expect from teachers today?
Well, you know what? It's interesting. I think what they want and what is currently available generally are two totally different things. And there's a lot of great instructors out there, but there's also too many instructors, I think, that are willing to really work with anybody regardless of whether or not they can help. And that's something that I've had to learn myself throughout my career, and that's sometimes, whether it's personality or knowledge, you have to find somebody that you can learn from and that can teach you. One of the most important things in any learning atmosphere, but for me, especially golf, is not just the ability to teach, Ted, but also the ability for the student to be teachable. And and so if a student is teachable and really has the desire to learn and to do the drills that they're given, and to just even dedicate a small extra 10% to trying to get better, then they are going to get better. And there's a paramount amount of instructors that can help them get better. The fortunate thing is that there's still some wonderful golf courses, including some great public courses that are available for everybody. And I'm one of the golf pros that is of the opinion it's my job to try a little harder in the golf business, but to also help drive golf traffic back out onto the golf courses. Yeah, and that's something that's really, and we know that by the numbers when we look at the statistics out there that that have been put out by not only several universities like Clemson as an example, and I'm sure some of the universities in California have done the same. When they've looked at some of the stats over the last decade in the golf industry, we've obviously seen a decline. There's a number of reasons and a lot of different theories, but the bottom line is there has certainly been a decline. We've seen a lot of golf courses close up at record pace, over the last few years, particularly, and part of it is recession-based, but it's also just not able to get people coming out for a variety of reasons. So definitely the industry, I think it's important. And I know you've tried to do this, and I try to do this with some of the things that I'm doing. You've got to kind of reinvent yourself a little bit. You've always got to be creative and come up with new ideas. You can't always just go with the status quo because eventually that will change as the markets change. And I think as a golf instructor, if you want to survive, or somebody in the golf industry, whatever, even with this show, I've always got to find ways to adapt and get into different areas and different markets in order to be able to really have the show grow the way I want it to. And if you're not willing or able to do that, it's going to be detrimental to your career. I want to ask you something else. On that point, go ahead. Jed, let me just bring up one quick thing. And this year, I have done more couples lessons than 15, 18 years of being. And I've really seen success, both because people like good value for their money, and by doubling up, they can save some money as well. But also, it gives them somebody else to hold them a little bit accountable. Right. So I just wanted to mention that because it's something that I never really did a lot of before. But I'm taking friends and couples out onto the golf and also doing lessons at the range. And it's as a golf professional to see that, if they play golf even a little bit together, then right there you have a built-in part-time coach and somebody that can hold them accountable for practicing and for getting better, as well as challenging them.
Mm-hmm.
And those ingredients seem to really be working with my students right now.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. Again, you have to be willing to improvise and be creative in your approach. You know, the old days of just sort of showing up at the golf course and opening the doors and hoping people will come and show up. That's not the case. There might be some exceptions to that rule that might still be able to get away with that. But the majority of golf courses nowadays have to be more creative and inventive in reaching out within their communities and getting people to come out, whether through business networking groups or other avenues as well. So it's very important that they look at some other different marketing strategies and opportunities. Something else that I want to quickly get your thoughts on as well, and that is some keys to better lessons. You just pointed out one actually, but what are your keys, do you think, to better golf lessons that you're finding some success with and are finding that are helping you grow and develop as a professional instructor?
I fall back on what my father and I originally did when we started the Billy Casper Golf Academy, and that is we came up with a short list of things that were important and that I had seen around the world that we thought that golfers really needed. And then we cut them back. So instead of maybe doing 4 or 5 things a lesson, even with something that was somebody that's eager for knowledge, we would cut that back and really focus on, say, 2 things and keep each lesson within those parameters. Because, as well as I, it's very easy to have somebody that's eager to learn and they're moving along quickly and you want to give them more information and help them. And the next thing you know is they're coming back over and over and over again for the same lesson because it's too much information to grasp. And so one of the first keys is, other than good value for money, is I would say the second key is absolutely dissecting what knowledge you want to give them or that they need help with. And then once you have that, break it down into really incremental little bits and pieces and don't overdo it. Even if it means the student's got to come back 3 or 4 times in order to grasp everything, that's easily worth it, because those 3 or 4 times to grasp, let's say, 6 swing changes is nothing compared to trying to get them to understand 4 coming back for the next year, same lesson over and over again. And so breaking it down, working on a few things, separating things like short game, putting, full swing. One of the things that I do, and very recently, I think 2 days ago, is I separate the driver. I'll dedicate a lesson to just the driver because I believe it's that important. I'm one of those people. There was something recently on social media that said, what's more important, a driver or your putter? And we know you have to get the ball in the hole, so your putter is paramount. But I can promise you, if you don't, it will penalize you. Driver of the ball is really important, and keeping it in the fairway. And so I'll dedicate an entire lesson just to that one component. One of the other things I would say that is missed is club fitting. And also, on top of club fitting, you don't have to club fit everybody. You can sometimes look at somebody's equipment and give them suggestions that will enhance the equipment they have. New grips, better shafts. If the clubs are able to be, manipulated up or down, you can do that as well. I mean, there's lots of things that we can do to help golfers get better.
Yeah, and that's a great point because, a lot of some of our older golfers that, especially golf professionals like your father that have been around for years, that's what a lot of them did is they worked on their own clubs. They manipulated and tweaked them here and there for years. Arnold Palmer did a lot of that. Many of the what I would classify as some of the more mature golf professionals, that's what they did. They didn't get new sets every year, and they had to work with what they had. So you're right.
Well,
obviously it is important to right. Exactly. It was working for them, And, occasionally they might try a new piece of equipment, but more often than not, they went back to, Old Faithful, if you will. All right, I want to flip now, and I've got something else I'm going to ask you a little bit later on, but I want to get to really what's new with Byron Casper. And I want to just very quickly read something, Byron, and then I'm going to get you to expand a little bit on it. You're going to introduce tonight something that, to my audience, a new partnership, if you will. And I want to just read a little bit about it, and then I'm going to get you to expand a little bit more. But I'm talking about Big Shots Golf. Is really a wonderful concept and a legitimate practice facility, and really fun for the whole family. And the Billy Casper Golf Academy has, as you put it, has done a deal with the franchise owners of Big Shots Golf in Utah, and currently right now Utah is the stage you're working with to do a Billy Casper Golf Academy in St. George, Utah, and obviously some other Utah locations. And it's your belief that Big Shots Golf and their technology has a winning combination of fun as well as being the first group of its kind to give good golfers a way to practice in a way that will directly reflect their play on the golf course, which is extremely, extremely, I can't emphasize that enough, extremely important. Who is Big Shots Golf? Tell us a little bit about them and what you're planning on doing with them.
Yeah, thanks, Ted. I appreciate that introduction. So Big Shots Golf is really an amazing group. The thing that really got me excited when I first was introduced to their technology was one that I've used similar technology but without the same results. And they don't have to use balls with chips or anything else. They've got the ability to have a driving range facility that is going to be as applicable for a golf pro practicing for a tournament as it is for a 2-year-old going out with his mom or dad or grandparents for some fun and starting to learn the game. And I think that that's really the dynamic that interests me as a family man, as a golf pro, is that there's a group that is appealing to that massive wide spectrum. And again, all the way from the pros getting ready for tournaments to little kids. And that's why the Billy Casper Golf Academy is doing our deal specifically with the Utah franchise owner of Big Shots Golf. And we're very fortunate to be involved with the Utah franchise owner for Big Shots. And our first location is going to be in St. George, Utah. And again, it's I can't say enough positive about it. But the reason that we're putting our golf school at the St. George, Utah location is because of the legitimacy of being able to practice and give quality golf lessons, also in a fun, exciting, really pumped up, exciting atmosphere.
Yeah. And, what's interesting, what I really like about it and I obviously went onto their website, and I'm going to give that to the folks here in just a second, but what's very interesting is the fact that they're not just targeting sort of one area of golf or necessarily the skilled only golfers. It's really they're trying to incorporate a family affair, if you will. And really this is a direction I think that the golf industry, obviously we've always talked about this over the years, but really the golf industry has always sort of specifically targeted certain areas or certain demographics in society. And now really golf is starting to recognize that the family unit is really what the target is. It's not just male or female or old or young. It's really the whole family. And we want to get them out to a facility like Big Shots Golf and get them out there. And there's something there for everybody. So it's not just a sort of a one-size-fits-all. It's something that everybody can take in. And obviously that's why you want to partner with them. But tell us a little bit specifically.
Ted. I mean, I think it's a wonderful concept, and again, we're partnering with the Utah franchise owner, and they are having many locations throughout Utah, and as those locations grow, we will grow with the Utah Utah franchise owner. But the corporate headquarters, I think, are for Big Shots, and they they really are doing some powerful things. I would suggest anybody that is in one of the areas or states that they have applications that you go and check it out for yourself. And again, the website is on the information I sent you, Ted, so you'll be able to give that out to everybody. As far as the golf schools go, and the Billy Casper Golf Academy in Utah with the franchise owner there, they can go on to billycasper.com, and they'll be getting updates on the facility in St. George, Utah, and the build-out and when it'll be opening.
Perfect. And so the website's, again, very quickly, bigshotsgolf.com. You can learn more about the concept there and really what Byron's talking about. And you can also get some updates also on billycasper.com as far as the build-out and when it's going to be open and up and running in St. George. So definitely want to check on that. We'll keep our eyes out. Now, something else that you've been working on, and you and I talked about this a little while ago in one of our off-air conversations. You talked about this with something, and what's very unique about this, it's certainly sort of the two components are not necessarily new to the golf industry, but you're sort of marrying them together. And let me explain. Obviously, we're talking about golf instruction, but we're also talking about wellness and obviously fitness and health and well-being of everybody. And what you've decided to do, you've decided to open a new golf school called the Casper Swing Lab with the OC Launchpad in Irvine, California. And this is going to be actually what's unique about it, again, is this is the first of its kind where you're able to combine golf instruction with a wellness center specializing in the body's movements and how to overcome injuries and recover from those injuries and other problems that people, so that they can get out there and still enjoy golf. What I like about this is that you're not just teaching golf at this center or going to be teaching golf at this center, but you're also helping people work through injuries and a little preventative maintenance, if you will, helping them to understand how to avoid some of those injuries by having a wellness center available as well. So touch a little bit on that as well.
Yeah, this is something else that's very exciting that I've been working on with the group in Southern California since really the end of last year. I was approached by a doctor, Dr. Jana Van Sertsum, and she's the owner of the OC Launchpad. And she has another practice specializing in physical therapy and in recovery, and has worked with quite a few athletes as well, and has a wonderful track record. And also being a golfer, she was curious as to how we could implement both a wellness center as well as a golf training facility. And what she came up with and what I've decided to partner with, and we're calling the Casper Swing Lab at the OC Launchpad, is really just really kind of, I believe, one of the first of its kind. We have the ability to not only help recover patients at the center with everything from massage therapists to Jana, Dr. Vex, who is really an amazing therapist. And at the same time, we can give golf lessons separate to that, or as you had stated before, talk about body movement and how to be really preventative with the golf swing. We've got a whole generation of people that are getting older, and they happen to love this game of golf, and too many of them are leaving early and leaving the game early when they don't want to. And I've seen all sorts of different devices and things that help people with injuries play golf. But for somebody that has a fairly minimal injury that should be recoverable from a hip issue or lower back, for them to have to give up something that they love completely is just really sad to me, as well as I believe sad as it should be for the golf world in general. And so by combining state-of-the-art technology as well as doctors and therapists, we really make an impact in Southern California golf and help people both, again, recovery, but also help prevent injuries that they know they're prone to, and make it fun for the whole family, because we're using full ES Golf Simulation with Earnest Sports. We really have a fun, wonderful atmosphere with a built-in gym, stretching area, and again, all of the therapist rooms.
Yeah, and it's again, what I like about this concept as well, Byron, is we're now getting into something that's become very important for a lot of people out there, not just golfers, but everybody. But obviously, being in the industry, we want to focus on the golfers. Is health and wellness is a big proponent of every day of your life, and wanting to be a little more fit and wanting to be healthier. And we're all, for the most part, we're living longer, and we want to have that quality of life as we get older. And you're right. Some of our older golfers that maybe have sustained injuries, either due to golf or other areas, have dropped out. And having that access to trained and qualified individuals who can help them work through the other side, if you will, of some of these injuries. And obviously, if they're more severe injuries, pardon me, then certainly they're going to want to be referred or consult their normal physician about that. But this is nice to have qualified staff in this wellness center component that can maybe answer any questions or give advice, as it goes with some of the issues that our golfers tend to deal with day to day. So I think it's a great idea, and I'm glad that you're adding the Casper name to that particular organization as well.
Well, I think I read a statistic somewhere fairly recently that talked about why golfers get injured in the first place. We're talking specifically from golfing. And because you would imagine all of the walking would kind of offshoot all the twisting and turning, that you do in golf.
Right.
Because we all know that walking is very healthy for you. And so, as I reflect on the need for this wellness center and combining it with golf lessons and really a one-stop shop for your golf health as well as your body, it brings to mind an example I had last week of a younger gentleman who was already starting to have some lower back issues from playing golf, specifically because he wanted to hit every shot with, not 100% power. He wanted to put 150% power into it. And he was very arms. And over the course of 2 lessons, I taught him one of the most basic things in golf, but something that too many people don't know, and that is that you're not hitting the golf ball with your arms. You're not swinging at it kind of like a crazy guy. You're what you're doing is you're trying to rotate nice and smoothly through and use your core. And, I always call it a light bulb moment, but when that light bulb went off in his head, he started swinging about 80% and hitting the ball further. And so that's just a simple example of what you can teach somebody that is going to make not just an impact on their golf game, but going to make a huge impact on their body and on cutting down the injuries they're going to get from trying to swing 150 miles an hour at every shot. And so again, that's just an example, but that's a real world example of why golf can cause injuries if not doing it properly.
Yeah, and the other thing too that people don't realize when they're doing something like the example you just gave is what ends up ultimately happening, Byron, is they're no longer swinging within themselves. And what happens then when they try to force a swing or try to put that extra zip into it, a lot of times if the technique is not properly, their body becomes disjointed. And what I mean by that is there becomes a separation in club and body. It's no longer working in unison together. And more often than not, in addition to having some errant golf shots, they become more prone to injury, as you suggest. And this is why sometimes slowing it down and just being more fluid with your swings and understanding really how the body works. This is something too I think that a lot of people that don't really understand the golf swing and how their body works in its proper form end up falling into this trap. They, start chopping at like a wood chopper, or they start taking, some unholy swipe at the golf ball, thinking that they've just got to murder it in order to get it to go very far. And if you look at some of the best golfers in the world, certainly they are generating a lot of clubhead speed, but it's a very effortless looking swing in most cases. Freddie Couples comes to mind, Ernie Els, a lot of these people that generated a lot of clubhead speed and got great distance, they didn't chop at the ball. They had a very fluid and smooth swing, and they swung within themselves. I think
all of those guys,
right?
All of them, 100%. All of those guys were quite tall, that you mentioned, and had the ability to be able to have a nice fluid swing. If you take somebody like, let's say that's under 6 feet, I don't know, Justin Thomas, he's about 5'10".
Yeah.
He turns, so he compensates for that long swing plane by having an absolutely just super fast turn through the ball and 100% control.
Yep.
But again, he's able to do that within himself, and he's able to generate the speed that way. And so, at the end of the day, the golf swing should be a lot simpler than 90% of the world think it is. It really is. And part of that as golf pros is really our job to simplify this game, get back to basics, to enjoy it again. And whatever that is. And one of those things, and I was going to say this earlier, if you're 20 years old and you're swinging 150 miles an hour at that golf ball, odds are you're probably not going to have injuries because you're young. But as you get older, and as somebody who just turned 50, I can tell you that not only would that foul up my game, but it would really foul up my body. So as you get older, I think it's important to realize that if you put in and get good fundamentals earlier on, then you're really, steering off any issues further down the line. So you get two benefits. You get the benefit of being a great golfer and a much better golfer than you probably thought you could be, and the added benefit of not injuring your body over the next playing golf.
Right. And we've seen that time and time again on many of the players, both on the LPGA and even the PGA Tour, where we've seen them, sustain injuries. And obviously, they're playing a lot more golf than the average high handicapper, so they're going to be more prone to injury. But, and sometimes, I won't say it's genetics, but sometimes you've got some physical issues that golfers, have gotten over the years, and it escalates or manifests into something else. So, but yeah, you're exactly right. I just want to very quickly mention, Byron, something that you'd sent over just to clarify. If they want to get more information about what we've just been talking about, they can actually send a text message and type Casper, CASPER, and send it to 90407 to get updates and a direct link to Byron Casper, correct?
Yeah, and we've also put some videos on there, and what's called is my digital business card. It's some people that I work with in California at the OC Launchpad put that together as a way to be able to engage the golfing audience in a much easier and quicker way. It's also got some great videos, both for myself as well. One of my favorite things to do sometimes at night is to go over and look at some of the old footage and some of the videos that my dad did, because I find it just incredibly interesting that fundamentals of the golf swing and what you're trying to do with that golf ball hasn't changed. It hasn't changed in the 50 years or 40 years that ago that he did his videos. And we may talk a slightly different language now, but good swing fundamentals have been around for a very long time. And so I enjoy seeing those old videos, and I hope anybody that decides to go and check that out enjoys those videos as much as I do. Yeah,
and again, if you want to access the digital business card, as Byron's suggesting, you can just simply text Casper to 90407, and you'll be able to get updates and a direct link to what Byron's just been talking about. So you can send a text message, Casper, to 90407, and get access to that information. Byron, it's always very interesting, and really what we've been talking about here for the last little bit goes to what I said earlier when you came on, and that is, in the industry, you have to be willing, sort of get outside of that box, if you will, and look at other opportunities and other ways of not really reinventing yourself, I guess maybe isn't always the correct terminology, but looking at other options as a way of reaching your audience and also being able to expand your knowledge, if you will, pardon me, to get that message out there. And, it sounds like some of the ventures that you're working on right now with Big Shots Golf and also with the new Casper Swing Lab is doing exactly that, incorporating other areas that are not necessarily golf related, but are certainly important components to golf, with the wellness center, and also with the Big Shots Golf as well. I think it's great that you're doing that and really reaching out to the family unit, if you will, and trying to get the family engaged and involved in a fun way in golf. And I think it's a great opportunity.
Well, I appreciate that. I have to make I do have to make one small caveat to that, and that is that I just want to make sure all of our listeners know that the Billy Casper Golf Academies have done a deal specifically with just the Utah franchise owner of Big Shots Golf.
Right.
And so it is just going to be in Utah with that franchise owner for the time being. But that doesn't take away at all from the value and the wonderful group that Big Shots Golf is across the country. And again, I would urge people to go and check it out because it's interesting. And as far as the wellness center goes, it really is time that we start combining things that are going to help golfers get better in our industry. And I would like to see it in other industries as well, where it's not just about going and bashing balls for 2 hours. It's about the whole experience and getting a good workout in, having your health. It really is important to the longevity of this game. And I plan on playing this game as long as I can walk. And I know there's many who love the game of golf that much. And so it really is time to start combining, because by combining efforts, it's that old saying, I don't know where it came from, but, helping somebody with their work, cuts it in half. And that's the world we live in, building each other up, trying to help people not just get better, but create a lifestyle that not only fits for them, but fits for their physical goals, as well as what they're able to or not. And so I'm excited with all of that. I'm excited to be able to help people in a small way my father wanted before he passed away. And so I'm very grateful for the opportunity to do these things. Well, and we're certainly excited for you as well, Byron. I've always, we've gotten to know one another here quite well over the last few years since I've been doing the show and had you first on. And we've had, as I mentioned to the audience before you came on, we've had many late conversations and long conversations off the air. And we've talked about a lot of different things, and we obviously both agree on this. As I stated earlier, the industry has to really get outside of the box a little bit from some of the traditional. That doesn't mean you have to get rid of it altogether, but you have to find new ways of engaging the various communities out there, and you can't just stick with the status quo, because the world is changing, and if the golf industry wants to be a part of that and wants to grow with everybody else, then it has to be willing to adapt and make changes along the way. So it's good that you're doing that and you're taking those steps, and I'm 100% behind you on that. Very quick,
Byron, we're getting close to our time here. Gosh, it's this hour's gone by almost as quick as the previous hour. My final question I wanted to ask you is, if you were to sort of sum it up in maybe more in a few words, but a couple of words anyways, what would you say would be the difference between Billy and Byron Casper?
Ted, for some reason you blipped out. Could you repeat that question for me?
Yeah. What would you say would be the fundamental difference between Billy and Byron Casper?
You said the fundamental
difference between your dad and yourself.
Teaching, or just in general?
Just in general, what would you say would be the difference? If you were to obviously there's some obvious differences. I mean, he was a multiple major champion winner and won in excess of 50 tournaments worldwide. But what would you say fundamentally would be the difference when you think of your father? Obviously there's similarities, but in how you approach things. But what would you say would be the differences?
You know what? That's a wonderful question. I'm glad I had you ask it 3 or 4 times so I could think for a moment. You know, my father is my hero, and for 2 reasons, really. I'm old enough to have thought about this enough, and the real first reason is because of what he was able to accomplish. As a kid that didn't have shoes until he was 6 or 7 years old, and literally did not have any easy life whatsoever as a youth. To do what he did and to keep grinding away and become a champion and a legend in golf is amazing to me. But as I've gotten older, the secondary thing, which I think is as important first, is the way that my father was able to combine his love of being a dad and his love of people without letting it detract or take anything away from his career. How hard that can be at times as you get fame and fortune. It's something to retain that person that started that path 50 years ago. Whereas my dad, he was always like that. He always had, it didn't matter what tournament he was playing in, what major, if any of his kids needed him, they got him. And so, and, you know, as his son, I'm very grateful for that. As far as the biggest differences between us, I'm a lot less patient than my father, and that's something that he taught to be more so of. And it's, for me, that's a learned behavior that's not quite learned yet. And so I'm as patient as he is, and I also am not quite the people person that he is, although I love people, and I've made it a personal goal to be as loving and time-giving as he was, because not only is it important to pass this game and the knowledge that we have on, but it's also good for you, and it's good for the soul to actually give more of your time. And something that my dad did a lot of that I'm starting to learn is super important, both for yourself as well as for the people that you're giving it to. The other difference is I'm probably a little bit less religious than my father, but so possibly more spiritual, and that's that I have focused a lot of attention on in the recent years, to go closer. And so, you know, I think I'll probably be thinking of your question for the rest of my life, Chad, to be honest with you, and leave it to you to come out with a pearl like that, because actually I've never thought about the answer to that question, and so I'm going to be thinking about it a lot. But to summarize, I would say very, very much that I don't have my father's patience, but I am learning, and I'm learning to be more like him every day when it comes to this great game of golf, and wanting to leave something behind that is not only good for people, but good for the game of golf in general.
Well, I don't think you could have given a better answer than that, Byron, and I certainly would agree with you. As always, I would hope that there would be some differences. I mean, we're all individuals beings, so certainly there would be some differences. But I think there's also a lot of similarities, and of course, all good. So I'm sure, I have no doubt that your father would be very proud of the man that you're becoming. And as you continue to grow, I'm sure he's looking down and watching the many changes as you develop and continue on through your journey in life. And I have no doubt that he would be behind you 100%. Let me just say in closing,
that,
Byron.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Yeah, he was. I enjoyed, as I've said many times on the program, I really enjoyed having your father on the show a few years back before he passed on. And it's unfortunately part of life that we all have our time. But he certainly not only brought a lot of joy and excitement to the golf industry, but he also gave back of himself, as you said, which was equally and more so important than what he did through his golf game. So on that note, Byron,
I'm very lucky,
I want to thank
Ted, that. Well, just real brief. On that note, a lot of people when they lose a family member, they feel them at different places or different times, maybe at the graveside or family something. But for me, it's the most interesting thing because I can hear him making comments on my golf game. So whenever I'm out playing, it's a little bit of a double-edged sword because he's still there, very much so. And
right.
And so it's a wonderful feeling to be able to play this wonderful game of golf and have all the memories I do of my father right there in my head as I not only teach but also play myself. So again, thank you for your kind comment.
Well, you're quite welcome. And on that note, Byron, I'm going to have to let you go for this evening, but I have no doubt you'll be back before year's end, and we'll talk some more and maybe get some updates on some of the things we talked about tonight. But just very quickly, for those of you tuning in here a little bit later in the broadcast, just to remind you that a couple of things that Byron's going to be working on. BigShotGolf.com is the website you can go and visit, and you'll learn more about the Billy Casper Golf Academy and learn about the new franchise opportunity that they're putting together in Utah, only at this point, at the St. George, Utah area. And in future, they'll be looking at some other areas as well. But they're partnering up with Billy Casper Golf Academy in Utah. And you can learn more about BigShotGolf.com about Big Shots in general. And you can also go to Billy Casper Golf as well and find out a little bit more, again, as Byron is partnering with
BillyCasper.com.
I'm sorry, BillyCasper.com, pardon me. That you can find out about the Casper Swing Lab with the OC Launchpad in Irvine, California. Find out when it's going to be open and available. You get updates there. And also remember to type Casper and send it. You can text that to 90407 to get updates and a direct link to Byron Casper as well. So visit those websites to get more updates and learn more. And Byron, as always, thank you, my friend, for joining me here in Golf Talk Live. It's always a pleasure, and I look forward to our next time together.
Yeah, me as well, Ted. You have a wonderful evening, and just good luck with the show. It's wonderful, and I love what you're doing for golf.
All right, appreciate it, my friend. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.
All right, bye-bye. All right, that was my very good friend and special guest, Byron Casper. Again, thank you, Byron, as always, for coming on and sharing some interesting thoughts and getting us updated on what you're working on right now. It's always interesting and exciting. Also, a special thanks to Chuck Evans and Bill Abrams for joining me on the Coach's Corner panel earlier this evening. Guys, as always, you continue to bring your best, so I appreciate that. But most importantly, I want to take this opportunity to thank all of the listeners worldwide for faithfully tuning into Golf Talk Live each and every week. I truly get a great amount of pleasure and enjoyment of having a number of highly talented coaches, teaching professionals, authors, and entrepreneurs, and friends like Byron stop by, and it's really through their participation and guest appearances that have really helped to make Golf Talk Live a first-class show. A special thanks to some of the sponsors and supporters. Jonathan Laird from South Coast Golf Guide. Go to southcoastgolfguide.com, and you can check out some of the great golf courses here in the southeastern part of the United States. Also, my good friend Meredith Kirk from Myrtle Beach area. Go to meredithkirk.com. She's a great LPGA teacher professional in that area. Nikki and Tiffany Litherland, thanks for all of your help spreading the word over the years. Mr. Bernie Pinder from Ontic Golf. Go to onticgolf.com, and you can check out a great line of customized putters. Sean Kelly from a great social media platform, linkedgolfers.com, and also my good friend Peter Doyle from Doyle Golf Solutions over in Ireland. Thank you guys for all of your continued support of the show. And on that note, thank you, everybody. I will see you next week with another great round of Coach's Corner and another interesting guest right here next Thursday from 6 to 8 Central on Golf Talk Live. God bless everybody and have a great week.